Fala, criatura que segue Minha Vida Geek. Eu tô aqui com o Kenneth Hite, que ele é autor e designer de jogos de RPG. Gente, ele fez a 5ª edição de Vampiro, a Máscara. Ele fez Trail of Cthulhu. Ele fez Agente Black Knight. Cara, é fera. Já deu um autógrafo pra mim hoje. Estamos aqui no Diversão Offline e eu vou entrevistar ele super rapidinho. Hi, Kenneth. Thank you to be here in our channel.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Claudia from Minha Vida Geek.
Good to meet you, and thanks for the invitation to be on the channel.
I want to know, why did you see the need of a new edition of Vampire the Masquerade?
Well, I didn't see the need. White Wolf saw the need. Paradox saw the need. And I think they wanted to make a version of the game for the 21st century. Because the 3rd edition of Vampire Revised came out in, I think, 97. And then there was, V20, which is very, sort of celebrating the past. And they wanted to do a version that looked to the future, that looked to modern day gamers, 21st century gamers, 21st century concerns, 21st century fears and desires. And just to recapture that same gut punch, that same thrill that we all had, old people like me had in 1991, and let someone who is, in their 20s now respond to the game in the same way.
Okay. So I can see that's the big difference between the other editions, the timeline.
I mean, they did bring me on to change the mechanics and adapt the mechanics. So it is mechanically different. I think it plays much smoother. Karim Muammar designed the amazing hunger system in this, which I think really foregrounds the nature of vampires, the nature of their thirst, the way that it controls them and drives them to do things. I took his hunger system and I put messy criticals on top of that, so you're always worried that your beast will succeed in a way that you wouldn't have wanted to. It's that sense of losing control that's a big part of the game. So I think Karim really opened it up, and then I just streamlined the dice engine, just one success number rather than trying to keep in your head up and down. And I got rid of botch dice because vampires shouldn't botch. They're cool.
Yes, pretty cool.
They shouldn't just, back a car into something. Oh no, I botched my drive roll. That's not how vampires do things. If a vampire screws up, it's because their beast made them do something even worse, right?
So it's less political and more beast, more animal vampire.
I mean, the politics is more immediately present because in the setting, so many of the elders have been called away. So you're not in a political game that someone started playing 500 years ago and you have no part of. You're in the political game of, we have to decide how to run this city. We have to decide how to stay alive. We have to decide how to keep the masquerade, and should we listen to the Camarilla? Should we, do this? Should we do that? So in a way, it's more political, but it's immediate politics. I mean, again, it's 21st century politics. It's grassroots. It's not, someone, 1,000 years ago made this happen, and now we have to be mad at those guys. That's not what we wanted. We wanted it to be pulled back to that sort of, everything is within that city, and you have to, live or die by how you relate to the other vampires in your city. Well, I can just fall back on this old default. Wanted to take that away.
Yeah. We can say we will have more action than the old versions?
I think that the amount of action you put into the game is really up to the individual storyteller. Certainly, some of the later versions of Vampire got a little, to my mind, superheroes in puffy shirts, right? We're trying to pull it back a little bit, make it more vampires and vampire focused, and that everything you do, you're paying a cost, right? A cost in blood, a cost in resources, a cost in, at the very least, connections to other vampires, or maybe even to the humans that are keeping you not just alive, but human at all. And trying to reintroduce that level of, I want to say fear, but that level of a tightrope that you're walking, as opposed to just being able to swan around being invulnerable to stuff, which is fine, but it's not what Vampire, to my mind, is really about. I mean, there's lots of great superhero games. Why should we play Vampire like that? That's my question.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. We go back to the roots.
Right, yeah. And that was always the goal, because I was there in 1991 when Vampire hit, and I remember being gobsmacked at what an amazing, revelatory game that was, and seeing so many people respond to it. I mean, Gen Con just changed overnight. The crowd that came out for game conventions changed overnight between No Vampire and Vampire. And I wanted to, and everyone at White Wolf wanted to recapture that energy, as opposed to just keep making Vampire for people my age.
You also published the Trail of Cthulhu.
Right.
So my question is a trick question. What do you like most, vampires or Cthulhu?
Oh, it's not a trick question. I love Cthulhu. I probably read about vampires before I read Lovecraft, but when I read Lovecraft for the first time when I was 11 years old, I fell hard. And when Call of Cthulhu came out in 1981, that was the only thing I played for about a decade. And it's still the greatest role-playing game ever designed. So if I have to pick, sorry, Dracula, I'm spoken for. It's the Lovecraftian universe is so enormous and so it's so much bigger, just a cosmic scope. Vampire, at its best, is a very personal story, and Lovecraft is almost a gigantic teleology, a cosmology, and that's just inspiring to me as a creator, not just in games but in fiction and nonfiction. That's literally the keystone of 20th century imaginative literature in many ways, is H.P. Lovecraft. And I love Bram Stoker. You're never going to say I don't love Bram, but you pile Bram Stoker on Anne Rice and you just don't get to Lovecraft's level of power. And it's just, someone's got to be the top, and it's H.P. for me.
And there can be a mix of this in time? Vampires and Cthulhu? Facing Cthulhu? I don't know.
Well, I mean, in my game Night's Black Agents, which is about spies hunting vampires, there is a Cthulhu mix that you could add in. In my game Dracula Dossier, there's a way to play it with the Cthulhu mythos tied into it. Certainly, Vampire the Masquerade, the Nefandi and the Bali are just next door. You can just sneak them in. That's very Cthulhu-y. So I would never say don't do that. But I do think that in many ways, they're asking different questions and they're feeding different instincts. And so make sure that you know what you're trying to do when you're playing with both. But again, Joseph Kerwin in Lovecraft's story, Charles Dexter Ward, what does he do when he comes back from the dead? He starts drinking everybody's blood. Yeah. Lovecraft has got vampires in him. Shunned House is a vampire story. So there are vampires in Lovecraft. But Lovecraft, like I say, is universal. He contains everything.
Yes, that's true. Thank you very much for being here with us. And I loved to talk to you. And I hope you'll be here in Brazil even more.
Well, I would love to be here in Brazil even more. Brazilian convention organizers, shout out.
Tá ouvindo, né, gente? Tragam ele. You were very, very nice.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be on the channel. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Real pleasure to have you on my channel. Thank you very much. Pessoal, valeu, obrigado aqui pela presença aqui. Graças ao Diversão Offline, a gente teve essa entrevista maneiríssima. E fica ligado aqui no nosso canal. Valeu, fui!